It's not that. It's my experience, what I learned, what I've seen, how I've become stronger, and how that was weaved into my life.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Chacho, man, thank you for coming on. It's nice to finally meet you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
We're excited
absolutely.
to be here.
It was my pleasure. It was kind of funny. A mutual friend of ours, Ben, after his podcast episode aired, he like sent me over one of your reels and was like, "Hey, I think this guy might be a kind of a cool guest." I had no idea that you guys had any any type of friendship or work basis or anything. And I watched the reel. I don't even remember what it was about, but it was like super quick. And immediately I heard like the dialect that you were speaking in a certain, like, you have this like timbre, and it was just so cool. And I'm like, it automatically reminded me of like hearing Be Real speak.
Oh, wow.
Wow. And so it was crazy. I literally emailed Ben back and I was like, this guy's got a crazy voice. I would listen to him for hours. Like I had no knowledge of like what you were doing, like with the book and all that other stuff. And I was like, set it up. And he's like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, let's do it, man." So it's like, then once we got it kind of going, it was like, oh, wow, like this is going to be actually a really good show. Like I had no idea. And so honestly, man, it's my pleasure to have you on. And
oh man, thank you. Yeah, we're excited. So it's really interesting because I've been a designer for 29 years.
An interior designer?
No, basically, especially in visual communications in the beginning. But I ended up designing products, brands, products, and really just developing. And so in that time, I mean, what I was taught actually before I got to work was that a designer never signs his work, right? So artists sign their work. That's art. Designers don't sign their work. It's all about solving a problem. So if there's a client, the client comes to you, or it's a job, there's a problem. The problem is solve for a branding need, or solve for this trade show we're going to do, or solve for this new product we want to launch. When that happens, you solve for the problem. As if you're successful, it's a good job. You throw it in your portfolio, move on to the next client, the next job, whatever it is. People within the industry know who you are. Nobody else knows who you are.
Sure.
So you're moving behind the scenes. And unless you end up getting picked up by a product, or you develop a product that is then named after you or by you, right? Now it's signed, you're behind the scenes. So after 28 years of that and building some of the biggest brands on our planet, I realized nobody knew who I was. And this was making things really difficult to build something of my own. Mm-hmm. And I've made a lot of millionaires in my life. So wanting to now build for me, build for my family, wanting to right? I've wanted to do this for a while. Started realizing that as I deployed things, nobody cared. And nobody cared because they had no idea who I was. And that's why you saw that reel, because I started building my personal brand.
Sure.
And I started aggressively like boosting, posting, learning, making mistakes. Mistake after everything's a mistake. Honestly, probably every reel I've done is probably some sort of mistake. But just doing it anyways, just keeping it moving. And it's been an interesting journey because it went from me feeling like I was wasting time. Like, got to go make this reel, but I have work to do, real work to do. So why am I making a reel? Like, get your work done. But I had to shift my thinking and realize, hit the mic, sorry about that, realize that it wasn't a waste of time. It was an investment into a future brand. But this time it would be mine. And so, yeah, that's what those reels are all about.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're good. I after we set it up, I started, watching them more and more and more. And then you sent me over, the kind of memoirs of the books. And I don't know if they're public or if you just sent me the link or how.
Yeah, I sent you a link.
But, I started kind of listening to some of those and you told me like, hey, listen to them in order. And so on this show, I like everything to be like really, really honest and almost unprovoked, right? Like
Right.
if I have a guest on, sometimes like off the cuff, it feels like, man, I haven't done enough research about him or something. But it's like I started listening to a couple of the memoirs out of the book, and I skipped around on purpose. I was like, no, I'm not going to do what Chacho said to do. I'm gonna skip around,
Don't
right?
be
And so then,
rebellious.
like, I missed parts of the story, but the reality of it is, I think there's like 28 of them or something like that.
There's 65 stories.
65. Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay. So it was only like showing me what was in there. And so I listened to 3 of the ones that I had access to, and I was like, stop. Because I was like, I felt like I was learning about you.
Yeah.
And in my mind, the way that I work, I thought that I was going to bring something to the table that, like, you know, was not worthy of the conversation. It wasn't
Right.
real. It wasn't organic.
Right.
But I mean, I do want to talk about your book. Absolutely. That's why you're here. But you know, the thing that like got me about the book before, because you just sent me the links to the audio clips, right?
Right.
I hadn't seen the artwork, didn't know anything about you. I'm like, who is this guy? You know,
Right.
really just a couple of reels, great following on Instagram. And I was like, oh, great. That'll be a fun show, you know? And so I listened to the very first episode at your recommendation, and I'm literally, my kids are in there, and it's not bad. It's not vulgar or anything, but like you had me on pins and needles. I was either thinking at that moment you were going to witness your father murder somebody,
Right.
or witness your father be murdered.
Right.
And I couldn't turn it off, dude. I was like, and then it was like such a good cliffhanger. I was like, oh, that son of a bitch, he did it. But just hearing those memoirs, like, you know, as I kind of started to do a little bit more digging, just to, you know, in sort of preparation to bring you in here, I, you know, obviously the book is My Dyslexic Life, you know, or is it Hit Hard?
Well, so it started off as My Dyslexic Life.
Yeah.
And and I really do want to talk about dyslexia. That's an important thing. And that was kind of my goal. But as I started to tell these stories, they became more about just life. And dyslexia was just one of the hurdles, and literally just one. It's a big hurdle, and it added to a lot of my behavior, especially as I became a teenager and felt the inadequacies, and then overcompensated and turned to violence and different things that really aren't anything to be proud of, but were also a big learning experience all at the same time. And so the stories are tough. Some of them are rough. And so it being about those things, I didn't want to pigeonhole the book into people thinking, well, you only read this if you have dyslexia or know someone who does, or maybe you're a teacher, or this is an educational book to explain in technical terms what dyslexia is. Like, it's not that. It's my experience, what I learned, what I've seen, how I've become stronger, and how that was weaved into my life.
Mm.
And so I don't know if you got to a point in the story, but probably the biggest lesson and that my dad taught me before he passed away was that I should, if I ever thought someone wanted to hurt me, just thought, that I should hit hard, hit first, and not stop till I knew they didn't want to come back. And the crazy thing is that I witnessed him do this many times. I witnessed him actually do this to people. So I believed it. I thought that was how you were supposed to act. So as I grew up, that's how I acted. And so hit hard was the first part of the phrase. So that's why I put that in there. My Dyslexic Life is the series. There'll be 3 books. The next one will be Hit Fast. And then the last one will be Don't Stop. And so it's a simile or a metaphor for life in general.
Sure.
And anytime you come up against fear, anytime you come up against an obstacle, hit hard, go for it, chase it,
Mm-hmm.
do it fast, don't hesitate, and don't stop, and you'll still accomplish your goal. So it's really interesting how this really huge negative lesson turned into a metaphor for something very positive in life.
Sure.
Just depending on the context, right? And, you know, are you physically hitting someone, or are you physically hitting a goal? Are you physically hitting a direction that you don't want to go down, that you're afraid of, that you know you should and you might need to, but it's scary, right? And so that's how the book's working.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So with that, context of, hit hard, hit first, and don't stop, in you're learning those lessons in life, but obviously catered more towards a violent type of a situation. And it's realistically, hitting, hit hard. So as you were kind of growing up, and there's definitely like parts in the book, where you're kind of showcasing that not as a positive, but you're just saying that this is the reality, right? This is who I was at that time in my life. So when you were to that certain point in life, did you experience like a switch? Like, I mean, some people, like, they have a child and all of a sudden it's like when did it become the same method of operation in a positive manner for you?
So when I was in high school, I couldn't play football because I had to take care of my little brother. I had to get him to his practices and I had to do his things. And so my grandfather noticed this, and my grandfather was amazing. The way he taught his lessons were really interesting. I mean, I remember I'd be outside punching my punching bag in the winter, in the cold, because I thought that made me tougher. I don't know. And he'd come outside and he'd say, Hito, if you hit someone like that and you kill him, you're going to prison for the rest of your life. And then he'd walk away. And he'd put that thought in your head, like, hey, dude, chill out, you know? And just little different things. So I really, for a long time, wanted to be different, but I didn't own it. So in my head, it was the world. It was the way that guy looked at me, or the way that guy treated me, or the way I was put into this situation, or whatever it is. So I was, in my head, reacting to my world,
Your surroundings.
and I was doing it appropriately because that's how I was taught to do it. Now, I'm pretty sure if my dad would have lived longer, he would have probably said, hey, dude, this isn't all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he didn't. So that's how it stuck. And so I graduated high school. And this book ends when I graduate high school.
Sure.
Which,
yeah.
but I graduated high school. I went off to college. I had the same issues. And I thought, man, things should have been different. Now I'm here. I'm in college. It should have been different.
What do you mean, like your life? Like
there was still violence. There was still, these, and I'm like, wow, that's not how it's supposed to work, right? I didn't realize I was a common denominator. And I still had a child's brain, so I was still figuring these things out. So at one point, I just decided that I wasn't going out anymore, wasn't going to be, I would be no part of any type of nightlife, this or that, because there's just drama everywhere. And I was fighting competitively. I had started doing that. That was the point of me telling you I wasn't playing football. My grandfather also put me into, really was karate at that point. So when I went to college, I found a little boxing gym, and between my apartment and there, I would train. I wasn't competitive at that point. When I got home, I started boxing with Aldo Vato in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And then I started fighting competitively under him. I couldn't get a job as a designer, so I wanted to fill my time, so I was training. The further and further I got into my competitive fighting, then I started doing jiu-jitsu, right? I opened an MMA gym, like it's called Undisputed. It's still in Santa Fe. So as I was doing these things, I just became nicer and more tolerant and easier and more secure of a person. And I found myself helping others. And I saw these kids walk in with the same attitude I had, and the same fears I had, and the same inadequacies, and I helped them. And they would come in and they'd be acting with, in New Mexico, a ton of machismo. Everyone's going to stare someone down or whatever it is. And that's how they walked in. They thought they were supposed to act that way. They thought that was appropriate. Within a few months, they'd be shaking the hand with a smile on their face of the next guy that walked in saying, hey, how you doing? Welcome. And things were changing, and I could see that. And I could see I was a part of that change. And that's when I really realized that kindness is strength. And I try to live that way now.
Yeah.
But there's still a monster in me. Like, in all honesty, I could end up in a situation where I do act out of that character. And that's also a very scary thing, right?
Sure.
So, but I think that that's also kind of part of being a man, right? And trying not to be emotional. I talk about that, right?
Yeah.
If you're in control of your emotions, then that will not happen. If you become emotional to the point where you're out of control, then you're dangerous, and that's not acceptable. So it's a balance, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not an easy balance, because it's especially, being brought up as a man, it's like, depending on your upbringing, it's very much, also too, I think, depending on your age, right? If you're coming up and I would say this generation, it may be a little bit different, right? It's like times are kind of changing. I think we all see that. We all know that. But if you were of a certain age, and depending on how your father's father brought him up, it's like that cycle just starts over and repeats. And so if there's any negativity in that cycle, the chances are it's going to carry over, right? It's like, so, but you as an adult man, you have a decision to make. It's like you can either take those bad upbringings that you had or that you experienced and keep that cycle going and pass that on to your kid, who's going to learn the same exact, negative things that you learned, or you can choose to break the cycle. But I think a lot of times it's hard for people to see, and it sounds like you were able to see that cycle needed to stop. Right. And that mechanism that allowed you to stop it was kind of embracing that fighting world. And I've seen that with a lot of friends. I've had a couple of UFC fighters on here that are retired at this point. And, some of them are super aggressive going in, just like you were describing with the guys coming in. And like, maybe they don't fight a lot, but they're just something is just deep rooted in them. They're angry, they're pissed off, they're overly emotional, they just can't control it. And then they get into that world and it's like, oh, I can control this anger and I can direct this, not anger, but this aggression towards something and become more fluent with it. And at that time, it's like you keep that demon at bay.
Right.
That demon's always going to live inside you, no matter who you are.
Right.
You can't just walk away from it. But it's like, it seems like that was your mechanism to be able to, like, you can pinpoint.
Right.
You can pinpoint those demons in your brain and say, okay, I know that I can combat that behavior or those thoughts with X, right? And then it's like all of a sudden now you're teaching that out to the world. And so, but it's hard as a man because you are, no father's perfect.
Right.
Like no human being is perfect. And so it's like, if you were taught one way, it's hard to recognize that wasn't right. Right. It was all you knew.
Exactly,
And it's like, well, shit. Okay, now I'm here. This is the first time that I'm raising a kid. This is the first time that I'm experiencing college or whatever it is. You don't have the answers. And it's like almost like you're expected to have the answers, especially if you have a child young.
Right.
So it's like you're expected to know all this stuff, but how in the hell are you supposed to know all that? You've never been through that experience. And your thought process goes back to, okay, well, when I was young, this happened. Okay, all right, well, I'm going to pull that in out of my bag of tricks. And it's like, those are the wrong tricks.
Wrong bag.
It's like, crap. So,
wrong bag.
I mean, so to hear you say, like, you found a mechanism that allowed you to kind of start the process of becoming better, right? Whatever that version of better looks like.
Right. It was also other men, right? Like Joaquin Zamora, ranked 8th in the world as a boxer. This guy, I was his sparring partner for a year straight. He would whoop me and me outside of the ring, sweetest guy ever. You would go and spar with him, and especially getting close to a fight, this guy was an animal. And when he hit you, like when an experienced boxer hits you, it's not like any other type of martial art hitting you.
Yeah.
It is awful. and he would disappear on me, literally. He'd be standing in front of me. I'd see a foot turn, like just a mini step, maybe a centimeter, and then all of a sudden he's over here somewhere. And I'm getting caught on the side of a face, and it's happening before I even realize it. He was a magician with a ton of power, and I was his sparring partner, and they were counting on me. And so I was cool with it because I loved the sport. And at the same time, I was designing shoes at this point. And so I wasn't competitively fighting because I couldn't train that way, but I still like to train. So I was his sparring partner. Because in these small boxing gyms, if you're not adding to the equation, you don't have any reason to be there.
Sure.
And so that's how I added. And just an animal. And as time goes by, I end up being able to actually move and work and compete with Joaquin. And I was getting better, and it was really cool to see. And he was, through fire, he was teaching me.
Sure.
Right. Also. And so was Al. And he would work with me. And so I'm used to this animal. And we go out to Albuquerque one night. Albuquerque's a tough place. We're downtown. We're in a club. We're having a good time. And these guys are just obnoxious. And I'm bugged by them. And they get a little close, and I decide to say something, and I did. And the guy turns around with a little bit of an attitude, and my attitude elevates. And I absolutely know that Joaquin's going to elevate with me, and we're going to whoop these dudes. That's really what was in my head.
Yeah.
And Joaquin throws this huge smile on his face, touches me on the shoulder, touches that guy, says, "Hey, guys, it's just a misunderstanding. It's super busy in here. How you guys doing tonight? Meet my friend." Completely changes the situation, creates a completely different dynamic. We hang out with those guys and have a great time. They're good guys.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm like, wow. Kindness is strength, right? Again, kindness is strength. Then my friend Tate just gets back from the Ultimate Fighter. And we're hanging out. We haven't talked for months. And he was one of my partners in Undisputed, the gym in Santa Fe. And so we decide, I don't know why, we're walking through the Via Linda Mall. And it's this little mall in the middle of Santa Fe, right? And we're walking through there, and Tate left as Tate, who was, trying to get his acting career together, fought in a few King of the Cage, already world-class jiu-jitsu, but not a lot of people knew who Tate was. I mean, in Santa Fe, they knew him, but they knew me too. But then he went to the Ultimate Fighter, came back, and now he's Tate Fletcher, right? And people know him and recognize him. But it was all new to him too. And so we're walking through the mall, and we're talking about things, and we sit down together, and this guy is just staring at him, but in the most aggressive way. And the guy's kind of like, I don't know, he's a little thugged out and tough looking, and he just staring at him and I'm like, dude, this is not the right guy to stare at.
Sure.
Like, I know it's not. And I look at Tate, and Tate realizes, and I'm like, oh God, this is not going to go good. Because I know if that dude was staring at me this way, how I would act. So I'm assuming that this is going to escalate pretty quickly. And again, Tate throws this huge smile on his face and says, "Hey man, how you doing?" The guy didn't know how to act. He was actually thrown off because he was trying to be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And he stopped, and Tate says, how you doing, man? How you been? How are you? And the guy, after a little bit of a stutter, "I'm good. How are you?" "Good, man. You have a good day." And we walked off. And so I started realizing that kindness and strength motto, and that became my motto, because these people that were friends, but that I also respected and in some ways looked up to, they acted a little different, and it was more powerful than what I thought it would be.
You think it's because they knew that they could control that situation, and not only in their heads but physically? Like,
maybe,
so
yeah.
like if you are a fighter, and I've talked to a couple of same thing, like a couple of guys that have gone pro, and it's like they leave or they go to a camp or wherever, and they come back and they're just like a totally different person at the bars. It's like it's constantly somebody staring at them, or and it's like I don't need to worry about that guy.
Yeah,
like there's no need to. Like, I know that I could take him out in a second, and also I'm a trained fighter. That wouldn't be good for me.
No, right?
Freaking cops are not gonna
No,
take kindly to that. It's like, well, you should have been the bigger person because you're trained and they're not. And it's like,
right.
But I often kind of thought about that as like, there's like a switch. It's like mental, like not only do I know mentally I could beat you, but also I can beat you physically. So like, there's no need to push it forward.
Right. I mean, yeah, I think that a lot of those reactions can come from fear, right? Fear-based. But fighting is scary anyways. Like, anyone who tells you they're not terrified when they step into a cage or a ring or on a mat or sparring just at practice, like that is a lie.
Yeah.
That is, it is terrifying. You push past that fear and you go and do it. But a street fight, absolutely terrifying. So yeah, I mean, I maybe less fear. I can't say no fear, but maybe less fear. But really, I think it's just the fact that they realize that you don't need to do that. I mean, if somebody's ready to take a swing at you, or the vibe is that strong, you might realize that. My issue was, as a kid, is I was just too easy to start a fight with. Right. And I'd say that, like, I don't start fights, but I'm really easy to start a fight with.
Got you.
Yeah.
It was a trigger. So I do have a question, man. And like, I just, obviously this is the book, but I went through yesterday or the day before, like the PDF that you sent me, just kind of combing through it. And it's such a interesting way to look at, to read, have illustrations in the way that you did it. And clearly, like, you know, having sort of done a little bit of research on you and found out, okay, Ben's like, yeah, he's, you know, obviously he's a graphic designer. He's a designer by trade. Like, I can tell that. But there's also certain things in here that I was really intrigued with. Like, even when you're telling a story, like different sentences will change colors as you go down. Why did you do that? Like, what led you to, is that from the dyslexia? Like, cause you read the book aloud. Right. In the memoirs. So like what
So I told the stories in the memoirs, it went this way. First, we got shut down for COVID.
Yeah.
A friend of mine hit me up and he said, "Hey man, you know how we do. We're creative people. We isolate and create." And that's brilliant. Isolate and create. Cool. I'm down with that. So I started a painting series with the kids, and it was awesome. And as I was doing that, I still had more time on my hands, and I thought, well, I got to do something. So late nights would come, kids would go to bed, I'd be sitting there. And so I started recording these stories into my phone. I wouldn't write them down, nothing. I'd just tell a story. And then at the end of that story, I would post it on Anchor and it'd shoot it to Spotify. And I didn't promote it, nothing. I just told the stories. The weird thing is that people started telling me, "Hey man, keep telling these stories. Like, get messages." And I'm like, wow, people are enjoying this. So now I was actually communicating with people, which helped me when I was stuck in the house. Because I am not a person to want to be stuck in the house. And as time went by and I'd tell a story a week, they started to grow and grow and grow, and people started to listen more and more, and it was becoming something. About 2.5 years into telling these stories, through moves to Dallas. I mean, COVID affected us huge. Like my business failed. I started a mask company. I designed a mask. I went and bought fabric from Walmart, and every Walmart they'd only let me buy like 1 or 2 yards at a time. I'd have to buy stretchy fabric because everybody else was buying the other fabric. So I designed this mask out of stretchy fabric, similar to what you wear on like jujitsu shorts or something like that. And I found a seamstress, and I had $150 left. Like, that was all I had to my name. I had sold my mountain bike. I paid all my bills, and this is what I had: $150. I gave her the $150, gave her a box of fabric, actually a bag, and she made as many masks as she could for $150. And luckily, she didn't have much to do either. So I started selling them on Instagram. I didn't have money for ads, so I just started making posts. My kids went out and they went to the desert and they made some really cool videos. My son helped. He's in LA now. He's an actor out there, but he was at home at that point. And we made about $40,000 in like 3 months selling these masks, like peddling masks out of the trunk of my car, basically. And so I took that money and went to Dallas and restarted my business. And within that year, it was rebuilt. At that point, my girl's mom had moved to Colorado Springs. So I moved to Denver to be closer and have continued to grow. Well, during all of that, I continued telling the stories. And a client of mine called me up and said, "Hey, man, you should consider making those stories a book." So what you're reading is actually transcribed from the audio stories.
Nice.
And it's rough. Like, I'm sure there's spelling errors. There's, little things in there. I worked with a few editors. My daughter helped me. I wanted to make sure that people could read it, but I wanted to make sure that there was a teeny bit of frustration.
Sure. Yeah.
And so as you look through the book and the titles have letters that are backwards and upside down and there's crash type and it's a little chaotic and it's mixing in with the photos. And it's very hard to describe dyslexia to anybody. I don't know how you see things. And so I can't really tell you, well, this is how it's different. But I do know that there is frustration when it comes to trying to read or write, retain what you read, or communicate when you write clearly. And so I wanted the readers to feel that frustration, for that to be their experience, all while being able to enjoy the stories.
Sure.
And so that was the line I was trying to walk while creating the book the way I did.
I mean, I definitely think it conveys in that manner for sure. That's kind of what I thought you were going after, because it seems really, really raw, which is good. It's purposefully raw. And I think that it depicts that, and like taking in some of the old photos of like your grandparents and your dad and yourself, and like, it's just, it's so disjointed. But like I don't have dyslexia. I have friends that have it, or they say it, and it's kind of weird. Like, and I think this will help in a way illustrate to somebody what it feels like to you, what dyslexia feels like. Maybe to a person who doesn't have it, or they heard about it, because I think it gets brushed off a ton. Like, like I have friends like, oh, I'm dyslexic. And it's like, oh, whatever, it's not it's not taken, serious enough. And so when you see this, it's like, you do get frustrated,
right?
And I was like looking at it from a book. I'm like, I was, telling your daughter this morning, like, oh, this is how it's actually coming out in print. Like, this is cool. Cause like, even in the 2-page view on the PDF, like I was getting like, anxiety being like, what in the freaking heck? Like it's all over the place, but I understand it now. And then the other thing too, going back to the memoirs, like your recorded stuff, a lot of people get anymore. It's so easy to have perfect audio. It's so easy to have perfect video, and it's always clean cut and post, and everybody wants to put out like, this like perfect version of themselves, like right here, right now. Right. And so like some of the stuff, like I hear you boom, boom, hit your mic in the recordings, and I hear you fumble on a word, and you're like, I can visualize you being like, that's not the word. What am I trying to say? Here's the word. And you move on about it. And I liked it so much because it was raw, and it was on purposely imperfect. It was like, this is just what it is. This is who I am. This is a story that I'm telling. Take it or leave it.
Right.
And so like the fact that you took that, transcribed it, and tried to convey what it's like in your life to live with the dyslexia, at least in these stories, like knocked it out of the park, man. Because I just wanted to know, I was like, is that what he's doing? Or is it just like, is he just being an artsy-fartsy designer? It's like, it made sense to try and read this, because it is frustrating, but it puts the reader in the perspective of what you're going through and what you have gone through your whole life. And it was like, so kudos, man. I think that knocked it out of the park. One thing I did want to ask you, and like, I was thinking about this the other day. And so, I enjoy having guests on the show, right? Like this is where I think I can shine. Like, let the guests say their piece, add a couple pieces here. I enjoy it. I typically gain from the episodes. But it's oftentimes hard to get a guest in here, right? And so it's like, I'll have to do like a solo episode. Those are brutal. They're hard. I mean, we'll have an episode go and do, 500 plays and, 6,000 hours watched with a guest or something like that. And then I'll see the next episode's a solo episode, and it's just like nothing. It's like 20 views and just horrible. And it's, I've had a couple of people, and both subscribers, non-subscribers, like kind of reach out and be like, look, man, like some of them are brutal, and some of them are like, like, why do you think you're important enough to where anyone cares about your story? I'm like, well, it's not story for one. It's basically me talking about topics that I've been thinking about that week. And I think that I want to talk about them out loud.
Right.
But I ran into some of these people, and granted, it's, they want a response. They want to be negative so they can get a negative response back and like feed into that negative energy. And so, but their comments were like, like just keep to the guests. Like that's what you're better at. But like, it kind of like, I was looking at it in a sense of like a lot of your reels, you're building your brand, like you're out there yourself, like you're saying things that are clearly topical to you or make sense to you.
Right.
And it's not a guest thing. And it's like, and you've built a really good following off of that. I just wonder if you've run into it, especially like when you first started, where you've got people or even you feel like you're not important enough to be the center of attention in these posts or these videos or whatever, because like that is kind of how I feel sometimes that the public views this show. Like if it's a guest episode, does really great. If it's a solo episode, it's garbage, right?
Right.
And I'll be the first person to tell people I'm not good at the solo episodes. You know, it's like I feel like I'm literally talking to a person through a camera, and it's like there's no like back and forth. There's no flow to the conversation. It's just me ranting. But I still think at times I'm talking about content that's important to me. It may not hit or ring true to anybody else. You ever feel like that though? Where
there was a point in the stories, and I was talking to my girlfriend about it, and she's like, you're a great storyteller. I'm like, that, thank you. And here's the thing with her. You do not get a compliment easy. So like, I've known her about almost 5 years now, and I think I've gotten maybe 3 compliments, right? So that
she might hear this. You better watch out.
I remember this compliment, and I said, "Yeah, I just don't know if anyone's listening," and she didn't say much. And then, like, I don't know if it was another day and she said, "Hey, keep doing the stories. Someone's listening." And that hit me really hard because in my head, I'm like, nobody's listening because there's not this group of people. Like, there's not thousands of people. There's not 100,000 people that listening to me. There's not 1 million people, right? I know a guy has 1 million followers. Like, no, that's not what it was. But does it matter? If there's one person listening, why would you stop?
Yeah.
And if it makes a difference for them, then yes, you are important enough. So I just realized, like, I think we try to, because we see these success stories, like, of these icons, right? And what they're talking about. And some of them have great things to say. Some of them have terrible things to say. Some are completely polarizing. It's all their thing. It's what they do. We think, well, am I really adequate to that? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But the other day, somebody on one of my reels told me that he's a big fan. And I was like, I get like 100 likes if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Like, and this guy's a big fan. But then I realized, like, what it is that something I said mattered to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my head, I'm just in conversation with this guy. And so right away, yeah, man, you can do anything you want to do. Like, literally chase it, go for it. And I really needed that, he told me. And it was like this back and forth. And it's like, okay, so that's the thing. The other thing is anybody that says, hey, stick to that, or that's just critiquing you because you're here trying to put on a show on your own in this studio that you've invested in, that you want to communicate to a person, to the world, whatever it is with, and they're going to tell you you're not good. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Go do something. If you don't like me doing my solo show, tell me why you should be here. Maybe you should be on my show. Why?
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about it. Like, I'm not a critique like that. Like, I don't critique like that. Like, if I see somebody trying, props. I know what it's like to suck.
Yeah.
I've sucked everything I've done. I sucked at first. I sucked at boxing. I sucked at jiu-jitsu. I sucked at karate. I sucked at football. I sucked at school the whole time I was there. I mean, I don't know if I've been a good dad. I hope so. We'll see when they're grown.
Mm-hmm.
Those fruits will come later, but I've done my best. And I'm sure I've sucked at that at points. So doesn't mean you stop. If it's in you, if you want it, you keep doing it. So you need to keep doing those shows.
Yeah.
And I would just advise anyone who wants to critique it, instead say, hey man, I'd love to be on your show.
Sure. Yeah.
And come over here and talk about it. Like, I'm sure you would welcome the conversation about why you suck. Cool, man. How can I get better?
Yeah. I mean, no, it was kind of crazy. I talked to Ben off air on our episode about some of this stuff, and it's like going back to this situation, right? Like almost like kill it with kindness.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't purposely, I mean, I can't sit here and say I don't get mad. Yeah, hell yeah, I get mad. Like somebody comes in and they have like a brutal comment, or they just like, but they're feeding that negativity, so they want you to respond like in kind. But if you flip it on its ear, like this one girl was like, this is garbage. I wasted 15 seconds of my life. And I'm like, This was 15 seconds out of a 2-hour long episode. Like, if you want to, here's this. I was like, I'm sorry. And then she went in and kind of like looked and watched and all this stuff. She came back. She's like, actually, like, hey, sorry. Like,
Okay.
I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave the comment though. I think it's good for other people to, maybe they see this and not, maybe people don't go through and read the comments, but like, I do want to see them see our exchange. I want them to see, you know, you be negative, me be positive, you come back positive, and then all of a sudden we have this conversation. And I was like, I think that's good for people to realize that like you can answer it. So it's like, it's very, there's like a very big correlation to what you were saying with like the fighters.
Right.
It's like, you know, killing it with kindness. Like
Right.
we don't have to feed into that negativity. We don't have to go to the demon that always lives inside of us.
Right.
You could easy. That's the easier thing. That's the easier thing to do is to go, you know what? All right, well, F you and da-da-da-da. And like, and I'm going to block you. And nah, just let it live. Let it breathe.
Right.
If that person's going to hate it, then they're going to hate it. But, you know, answer and say, okay, well, why? Can you give me an answer as to why this was garbage? Right. Or, you know, and I always say like, okay, well, you know how hard it is to take a 60-second clip to where it could be clickbaitable enough, like goes up the leads or the algorithms, right in the reels or the stories or wherever you're at, and then have some kind of context to maybe lead people over to the 2-hour long episode. I'm like, that is so hard.
Nearly impossible.
You know? And so it's like, I would, all right, here you go. I was like, I almost want to send over the raw footage and be like, you do your best.
Yeah.
You send me something that's going to get 20,000 views.
Or say, hey, I'd love to see your podcast.
Yeah. For sure.
And hey,
sure.
Here's the thing is you can film a podcast from a cell phone. I do 1.5 minute podcasts almost every day, right?
Yeah.
Like show me yours.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you should, if you get a good enough one, you should literally invite him to the show. Say, hey, come on out. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know you'll win him over. That's the thing though, right? Because kindness is strength. It's powerful.
Yeah.
I had a guy that left me a comment and he said, only devil worshippers wear North Face.
That's good, actually.
And I was like, dang. And so I wanted to respond, well, what if it's really cold outside and North Face is having a really good sale? Because that's literally what happened. Like now that I live in Denver, there's a North Face, what's it called?
Like an outlet
store.
Yep.
And all their hoodies were 60% off. Like, oh, this is awesome. And so I bought me some hoodies and I was rocking a hoodie in one of my videos and only devils wore it. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting statement.
Yeah.
But I just went ahead and deleted that one. I didn't know if I was going to win that one in any way.
Leave that one alone. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy, man. Like, so when is the actual book, when are you thinking you're going to release it to the public for sale?
So right now, anyone can go download the digital version if they like. My son, who's an actor, he's actually going to read the audiobook.
Oh, he's going to read the audio.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Why don't you want to read it?
I can't. I literally can't. I can't read this book in a rhythm that anyone would want to listen to.
I disagree. I
just can't read it. I can tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Yeah,
so
but
okay,
I
so the stories that we hear on the memoirs is not quite exactly what's in the book. Like this is a transcribed version of the stories.
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
See, this is where it gets muddy for me.
Yeah,
because I haven't read all this.
Okay.
My daughter's helped me. I had an editor to help me. But I can't. The book is 444 pages.
Sure.
I can't retain information after about 2 pages of reading.
Gotcha.
So it would literally take another 2 years for me to read this book. And then I wouldn't remember anything. I'd forget my own stories, basically. So it's real. It's a real thing, right? It's like I explained in the book, it's like you break both your legs and someone tells you to climb those stairs.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing. So
does your son have an accent?
A little bit. I mean, he grew up the
Southern
same place I did.
Okay.
But not as prevalent. Actually, they all tease me.
Yeah. I just wondered because like when I going back to the beginning of the show, like when I heard your voice, it was like I didn't know 100%. I didn't know anything about you, but I could tell like where you were from in New Mexico. Like I mean, from your accent. I mean, because I'm from Louisiana, so it's like from Northeast Louisiana, which has definitely got the Louisiana Southern slang. Right. But if you get like further south, like Vidalia, if you get towards like the closer you get towards New Orleans, it changes drastically. And it's like there's like segments in Louisiana where it's like, what did you just say?
Oh yeah.
But it's like that's the case too, like Southern LA, right? And then like Southern New Mexico, like the closer you get, it's like that accent, it's kind of like regional, which is kind of weird. So when I heard it, so that's why I asked, like, does your son, because I think that conveys like a very big part of who you are and like your upbringing. Like, so if you were just going to have me, some white guy, read it, right? It's like, well, that doesn't do justice. Like, that doesn't kind of like, it doesn't keep that same contextual, like, you can almost feel the fact that like, this is like Southern New Mexico. Like this is, a part of who I am. There's heritage to the way that you sound.
Yeah. And I we'll see how he does. But I got to give him the opportunity. He has to do it. And so we had this big talk and I said, all right, man, well, how long is it going to take you? Because this needs to move. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to do 2 stories a day, which that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot of reading. Yeah. And I told him, but I need them to feel this. You're not just reading the story, you're telling the story. And you got to look at these characters. And he's, no, Dad, I got it. I'm going to do it like an audition. And I'm going to absorb the characters, and not just me, but it's got to become my dad. It's got to become my mom. Because if you listen to the story, I talk about, my mom is soft. Hito, come here. Who won Hito, come here. Who won that fight? Yeah. That was my Mother's Day story, right? Because the story, my mom, I got in a fight at school, and I'm like, I'm in trouble. Who's going to show up? And my mom walks in. My mom wasn't around that much. So my mom walks in. I'm like, all right, well, we'll see how this goes. Principal's there. The kid I fought there, we're friends by now. Yeah. Right? We're not, the fight was 15 minutes ago. We're cool now. And we're both in trouble together. And my mom walks in and she doesn't sit down. She was almost 6 foot, a beautiful woman. And she looks around and she says, is this the kid you fought? And I said, yes. And she said, who won? And I looked at him and looked at her. I said, I did, I guess. And she said, okay. And then she sat down.
Yeah. Well, like, one thing that I picked out of like some of the stories, like when you're like your grandfather, right? Like when he comes in, I can hear in the memoirs, like there's a difference, like, right? Like when you talk about your dad and you're like, if you're mimicking your dad saying something or your mother saying something, and then you respond, when you say a story about your grandfather and then your response, the way that you're articulating is completely different. Like, and I know by you saying it that you had a different relationship with your grandfather. Right. It was like, and this happens a lot. Like, sometimes shitty dads are really good grandpas. Right. They've learned from their mistakes and they don't want they're like trying to play catch up with their grandkids. Right. And I'm not saying that that's the case between your grandfather and your dad, but I can tell when you're talking, you have a completely different relationship or had with your grandfather, and so it's just like that I would be very interested to see how your son reads it. And if he's an actor, I think
I mean, this is a good opportunity for him, right? To do that. And he's done some great things. He's been cool. He's had some good mentors. Tate's helped him a lot, like not given him an opportunity. He's working for everything he's done. But, so we go, my son comes, he said, Dad, I'm not going to college. I said, all right, well, I didn't even think he was going to graduate high school. He's dyslexic also, not as bad, but also didn't get a lot of the support I ended up with. Yeah. And so we get to a point where he's graduating school and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And he said, all right, but I'm not going to college. And I said, all right, well, what's the plan? And he said, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be a movie star. That's what I'm going to do. And so when I went to my grandparents and told them I want to be a designer, right? They didn't know what that was. My grandmother owned restaurants. My grandfather was a politician, more of an activist. So unself-serving that he didn't make any money. So everything was on my grandmother, and she literally supported the entire family. So my mom, my uncle took care of me and my brother. They literally saved our lives. My grandparents saved me and my brother and my life 100%. Like, and I knew that as a kid. I knew that we were being saved. So absolutely completely different relationship. But that being said, like God, and I'm forgetting where I was going with this. But anyways, that being said, with my grandfather and that relationship, he wanted us to be tough. But we also had to be smart. And we also had to be, just the things. And he would teach those lessons, never grounded me once. Never, I mean, I did get a whooping once or twice, but not much. It was really a lot by example and a lot by like, you know, if I came home late, if I stayed out all night, which I would do.
Yeah.
Which would be crazy. If my kids did that now, I would lose it. I would get home, say 7 a.m, not slept a wink. Like, and my grandfather would just be waiting outside with a shovel.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'd show up, he'd hand me the shovel, and I knew what that meant. That meant I was going to work probably till 2. And I'd be outside in the sun, and we'd be irrigating out there and working and doing our thing. So, and I'd be exhausted. And as we were working, he'd talk, and I'd learn.
Yeah.
And then he'd be, all right, go ahead and go get some lunch. And I'd eat some food, and then I'd sleep. And I wouldn't sleep for much longer because I'd want to go do something, right? And then I'd move on. But the lessons were very different, right? Where I think a lot of kids, I guess he taught me through experience and also allowed nature to take its course. And that is scary because I want to protect my kids, and that's not how they were.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, that's come up a bunch on this podcast, especially with me. Cause like, I think you and I both were raised similar, but different, you know, like a very much latchkey kid, like go do it. It's like you learn from your experiences and thank God I got through it. Right. It's like some of the stories, like it's funny, like my kids will be going to sleep sometimes. And like, if they happen to be like, oh, we'll sleep in the same room tonight, right? They're 11 and my daughter turns 8 here pretty quick. So it's like, they'll like, tell us some stories, you know, like from your childhood. And like, I mean, a lot of them are crazy. And like, my wife will be like, oh my God, I would flip out if our kids did that. I'm like, well, it just wasn't what it was, you know? It was in mid-90s and we're, you know, Northeast Louisiana, it was like, whatever, you know, what do you, right? It's like, we weren't worried about it, where we didn't know any different. And so like to think about, I think that there's good and bad, like it seems like both of us are a little protective of the kids. Like, okay, that was clearly wrong, or it can't happen to today's society. Right. But it's like, I'd often wonder, it's like, man, it's like, okay, you do have to learn, you got to fall and scrape your knee to realize like how to ride that bike. Like you have to, but man, like me looking at the way I was raised versus how I want to raise my kids, like I go into that preventive mindset. I go into that like protective of like, what can I do to make sure you don't fall and scrape your knee? And I'm like, I think about that often. Like, is that a negative? Because they're not gonna know on their own. You know, it's like, and it's like when they do fail or when they hit rock bottom, are they gonna have enough grit to kind of get back up? You know, because it's like, I think that actually defines a person. You know, it's like, I love hearing the story about like, we were down to $150. We made masks to survive and we had to hustle and grind. There's a lot of people that have no hustle. And unfortunately, you don't get the chance to learn that when you're in your 30s and you hit rock bottom and you go, oh God, what am I going to do? You got to go. Life doesn't stop because you've hit rock bottom. No. It defines you once you hit rock bottom as the kind of person you are. Yep. So it's just like, you got to do whatever you have to do to put food on the table. When you have that mentality, it makes you a different person. Yeah. Because you will do whatever it takes, no matter what, right? Right, wrong, or different. Like at that point, you're in like protector mode. I have to do this. I have to be this person. We've got to figure out life. And I don't know if a lot of kids are learning that. I don't know if they're learning that as an ability. You know, and it's like, I feel like when they fall, like the first time you fell, right? It's like whatever that was, right? When you hit that rock bottom, right? At that point in your life, you had enough grit about you. I guarantee it, just from like barely knowing you, to be like, all right, boots on, let's go. Like we got to figure it out. There is no stopping. Life doesn't stop. We've got to move. But you bounce back immediately, right? You had to make okay, yes, this sucks right here, but I've got to go. Yep. I can't wait 2 weeks. I can't wait a month. I can't go live with mom and dad and go, oh, we fucked up. You know, it's like, no, we got to go. Right. But I wonder a lot about kids, especially like my children, even like, and I'm guilty of it. You know, when they hit that rock bottom, because everybody's going to hit, whether it's in life, relationship, finances, whatever, right? You're going to hit rock bottom. You have to have enough grit to be able to move. Absolutely. Right? And if you let that rock bottom start to define you, then it's such a negative downspin. But it's like, I do question that. It's like, man, do I need to let my kids fail more so they realize that if you ride the bike correctly, you're not going to fall and scrape your knee, you know? Yeah. Like, I think that, well, this is the difference. Us as kids, they had to schedule our rest time, right? So they'd have to schedule
come inside, come eat, come chill,
Mhm.
come say hi, come to bed.
Yeah.
My kids, I have to schedule their active time, right? So
Mhm.
like my son, for example, go to football practice, go to wrestling practice, go ride your bike. Let's go ride bikes.
Mhm.
Go race BMX. So everything was scheduled. Everything was pushing. Everything was saying, go do this, go do that. Where, so it's completely opposite.
I never
They're
thought about
pulling
that
us
way.
in.
Yeah.
We're pushing them out. But it's got to be scheduled. So while our active time was everything and rest time was scheduled, homework time, their active time is all scheduled and it's all coached or structured, right? So like, think about like as a kid, me and my friend Harley, we get on our bikes and we take off and we go ride in the dirt somewhere, and we do whatever, right? We go throw rocks or act like we're, I don't know, soldiers or do whatever it is. Just imagine in today's world, watching your kids jump on their bike and bounce,
Mhm.
knowing that they should be back around lunch.
Not gonna happen. Not a chance, dude.
Right?
I don't know why, but I want it so bad. I do. I want, man, like, I mean, Chacho, I would love for my son. And I even push him, like, just do something,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
because like I want him to be more active, but like, no way. I'm not letting him ride across the highway by himself.
Right. So
I'm like,
I think the solution is, and I used to talk about this, and I call it integrated lifestyle, right? We have to exercise. We have to do things as grown-ups. So a lot of things that people do is they say, I got to go to the gym. And then they bounce and they leave their kids, they leave their family, and they go get their fitness in,
Mhm.
whether it's early in the morning before work, whatever. And then family time is always something restful. It's either around a TV, around food,
Mhm.
around church, around, whatever your that family time looks like. And what we started doing was really cool is that we would go, my little one, she wanted to race BMX. And so there's a great track in Albuquerque, Duke City BMX. Started taking her there. Before you know it, my next daughter wanted to race BMX. So then she started riding. And then my son, who had when he was younger, wanted to race again. So now all three of them are riding. I have an older daughter, but at this point she was somewhere in Europe doing her thing. But actually she even went and rolled on the track a little bit, right? So we are all of a sudden a BMX family. And I'm sitting in the stands getting fatter, wishing I could work out. I don't know, I can't work out. I work all day, blah, blah, blah. I need to work out. And I started realizing, dude, go buy a bike.
Yeah.
I got me a BMX bike, and then we all rode BMX, and then we all raced BMX, and we traveled together, and we did things together. And I was getting all this fitness in, and we're hitting up pump tracks, and we're hitting up working on skills, and we're doing it as a family. So now they're getting their bumps and bruises. My girls are full of scars. If you look at their elbows, you look at their hips, their knees. I mean, and they're good. All my kids are all expert level riders. And my youngest one was on the U.S. World Team. Like my oldest one was a national champion, won the ROCs. They're awesome, but they've taken their bumps and bruises doing it. So I think that one way you can simulate that is by putting them into some rough sports. Like jiu-jitsu is a great sport for kids. It'll make a mean kid nice and a nice kid tough. Maybe not mean, but it really will. Like if you have a kid that's always talking trash, it's a little bit of a bully, throw him in a fighting sport. It'll make him nice. I promise you.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know how. I have some ideas, but it will. And from there, who knows what they get their interest in. I mean, you can't live vicariously through them. If there's other things they want to do, you got to be open to all of that. But doing things like that with your kids, now you're their best friend. Let's go ride a bike. Let's go do this. Let's go throw some rocks, whatever it is. I think that's a really good way to make that happen.
Yeah. I haven't thought about it like that. That's definitely awesome.
Yeah, like, let's go shoot some arrows. Let's
Sure.
go whatever. And relating factors, right? I had kids young. I realized very young, if I don't have relating factors with my kids, I'm probably not going to like them very much. Like when they're babies, you love them because they're so super cute and you can hold them and it's the most amazing thing in the world. And then they get a little bratty, but you're handling it. And then if you don't have relating factors, it gets to a point where it's like, it's just something you love, right? But it's a schedule, you're feeding, that's not a relationship.
Sure.
But the minute you can go do something together, like, oh, me and my dad, we hit the rock climbing gym together.
Yeah.
Or we do jujitsu together. And you can talk about it. Dude, that armbar you slapped on that kid was sick. Now, all of a sudden, those relating factors make for a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what friendship is, right? You're not homies with a guy that you can't relate to.
Sure.
So I think that building those relating factors early, integrating your lifestyle, keeps you fit, healthy, that the family together, I think that's a really good way to help supplement that.
Sure. No, I think
in this type of world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want to get them exposed, but it's like at the same time, it's like you want to be there to protect, but it's also nice if you can, do it as a group, as a unit, and it's fun for everybody. Right. So I think that's a great way to look at it, man. I think I feel like I need to start imposing some of that.
It's fun. Like, it'll keep you young too. That's the thing, right? Like, and here's the thing, like my youngest still wants to race BMX. After COVID, we had a lot of setbacks. Her sister, my middle daughter, she doesn't want to race anymore. But if we go ride a bike, she jumps on it and she's dope. She's clearing tabletops. She's doing her thing. We're having a good time together. My son, he's in LA. His bike is here. Dad, I can think about how cool it'd be if we could just go ride again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it ties you together in ways. And the other cool thing is, from a basketball to a bike to a wrestling match, they can take those things to other places and it's a part of them now.
Sure.
And then they can tie into those cultures. Like when my son went to LA, I was like, dude, first thing, find a jiu-jitsu gym. Because now you're with people that speak your language.
Sure. Yeah.
And so if you give them those type of cultural ties really early, then they'll have that for the rest of their lives. And even if it comes to a point where you can't do that with them anymore or you're not there, you're still with them because they're doing something that you did together.
They keep that communication open. That's interesting. Did you some of the people you talked about in this book, did you still have relationships with them, or are these
people?
Like
my friend Harley, like that's family. Like since third grade we've been boys. My grandfather's still alive. He's a lot older, but he's still alive. So who else? My Uncle Tony's still around. He's in and out of the book. He was not around as much. Who else? It actually reconnected me to a ton of people, which was cool.
Sure.
Because I had to call and say, hey, dude, I just wrote this story and I'm going to publish it and I'm going to blow it up. Yeah. And you're in it. You're all over it.
Yeah. Do you have anybody that was kind of opposed to it, or just?
So it was just hard to find a few people.
Sure.
But once I did, and then it's funny because you're like, oh, I don't know how they're going to feel.
Yeah.
And then they're like, dude, yes, do it. The hard one was I have some friends that have passed. And who do you ask? Because they have moms, they have dads, they might have a wife or kids, or they have brothers, they have sisters. And there are going to be people that didn't see them the way you saw them. Mm-hmm. And so I have changed some names because of that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it actually has reconnected me to a ton of people that, so, do you know what's crazy? And I was telling my friend Harley this. This book is not just a book. For me, it's a time machine.
Sure. I can tell that.
I literally got to go back in time, especially the last 3 months. From reliving the stories, reliving the emotions, relearning the lessons, but with a mind that can actually take advantage of them. Mm-hmm. It's extremely therapeutic. And then reconnecting with these people. It's literally been like, if you want to create a time machine, start telling your own story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah.
It was really like, kind of listening to these. I was listening to them last week, some of the memoirs, and I had an issue this week. My wife and I were trying to buy like a house and do like a fix and flip, right? And so I knew in my heart of hearts, like we weren't going to get it, right? Because just the market, the way that the market is, it just, people are willing to buy that house in kind of a more of a rundown state because they need a roof over their heads, right? And so we were trying to come in a little bit lower and fix it up and make it more of a livable unit and sell it at a reasonable price. And so I kind of had the feeling that it just wasn't going to go through, right? Like we'd done all the motions. I'm like, all right, we submitted the bid and everything. And, I've got a really good friend who was my literal best friend growing up. And, oddly enough, we rode BMX together. Like that was our big thing. It's
Awesome.
like, and so he's now been investing for a number of years, like with his wife. And it was odd because we lost touch. Like I had seen him, we moved up here from Northern Louisiana to Colorado in 98. And, we stayed in touch. He came up like twice, 2 or 3 times to visit. And, we had gone down there in this band that I was in and stayed with them at their house. And so he and another friend of mine came up right before my wife and I got married, like days before the wedding. And it was really weird. This is Colorado. And a lot of my friends at that time were just like smoking a ton of weed, right, at the house that we were all living at. And it freaked them out. Like they were still from Louisiana. And like, I don't even know if weed's legal in Louisiana now.
Right.
But they like legitimately got freaked out. And, it's like noon the next day. I had to work that Friday. I'm calling them. The wedding's on Saturday. I'm like, hey, where are you guys at? We're going to do rehearsal dinner. And they're like, yeah, man, we're in Albuquerque. And I'm like, Albuquerque? What do you do? What? They're like, yeah, we're going back. And so I kind of took that to heart and didn't talk to either one of them for like a good long while. And like had a couple of conversations with my buddy Scooter. And this is the guy that I'm getting ready to kind of tell about, but it was never anything like more than just like very, very surface level, like,
right.
And it was like through a messenger or something.
Right.
Hey man, it seems like you're doing good. So the other day, like I pick up Messenger and I had just talked to him like a couple of weeks before. My daughter wanted to see the house that I grew up in, right? So we Googled it and Google Streeted it, and she's like, whoa, Dad, that's a tiny little house. I was like, yeah, it seemed big at the time, but it's tiny.
Right.
And so, I was just texting him, hey man, how's things been? And, and he was all good, So I hit him up and I was like, can you take a phone call, man? I need to ask you something. It's about investment, and so he's like, here's my number, call me. I'm driving between jobs. Like, so should I call him up? What's up, man? Nothing, dude. How you doing? Everything was good. And we just get right into it. Like he's like just giving me all this like wealth of knowledge. Like I've learned from personal experience, like keep doing this, keep doing that. And like we hadn't talked, like my wife and I've been married for 16 years.
Right.
Like, we hadn't talked on the phone in 16 years. This is my best friend growing up. Like
Crazy.
so much to where his mom had to come out and tell me one time that I had overstayed my welcome because I had been at his house too many times because we had brought in like 2 or 3 dump trucks worth of dirt and built like a small like BMX park in his backyard, right? And so
Sick.
and it wasn't crazy or anything, but like it was like a step up and a berm and some other stuff.
Yeah, which is a ton of work.
Yeah, it was
like
insane.
months of work.
Yeah.
And then it rains once. Dude.
Yeah, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So, but like had such a crazy good relationship with this guy growing up. My best friend, don't talk to him for 15 years. Call him the other day without a beat. He just picks up the phone and he's like there, right? He's like, boom, here's the questions. And he tells me the story. And I'm not gonna say any numbers because I won't do that to him. But he basically is like, look, I'm not saying these numbers to make you feel bad. I'm saying these to encourage you because it is actually possible. And everybody thinks that you're gonna be wild and crazy and stupid for doing it, but it is possible. And he tells me this and I'm like, holy shit, man. Like to know you from like a such a young age, to see where you're at. And he's like, you can keep doing it. Whatever you're passionate about, keep doing it. And then the crazy thing is, I don't have a real relationship with this guy as far as, like talking all the time. And he goes, oh, hey, by the way, right before we get off the phone, he's like, I've caught a couple episodes of the podcast, man. I watched 2 or 3 of them. And he's like, I like it, man. Keep doing it. It's awesome. And I was like, boom, light bulbs off. Like people that you don't realize that you're still in contact with because you're not in contact with them for whatever in life, you may actually still be speaking to them and you're not even aware of it, right? And
someone's listening. Right?
Yeah. And so he brought that kind of full circle for me. And I was like, all right, man, like, wow, that's so cool. That A, you're listening to the show. And then that B, we could pick it up like that. Because there is people in life that for whatever reason or another, you might have to cut them out of your life because at that juncture, you're having to go this way and they're still over here. And there's people in my lives and they listen to this podcast and I know it and you know who you are. I loved you at that time. I still love you now, but you're not part of my life for a reason.
Right.
And it's not because I don't love you. It's just because you were there and then and I was here and now we're 15 years down the road and I don't know how to get back to where I was. I'll never be that person I was 15 years ago.
No.
But it was really weird because I thought that was the case with this friend, that we had spent so much time apart, and I haven't seen him, God, since, I don't know, a long time. And when he was like, picked up the phone, answers, like, like a friend, a real friend, regardless of how much time is spent between the gaps.
Right.
And then to be like, also, man, I've been checking out what you're doing. I like it. Just keep going forward. It was like, so hearing you say like, this book has reconnected you with these people in your past that you may or may not have talked about, maybe to your kids, telling the same stories.
Right.
That's so awesome that everybody's like got your back in that. And obviously with Harvey or Harley, you're close with him and you guys talk all the time.
Right.
But to hear you, it's like, oh man, I had to reach out to these people, and it's like bringing this, like it's reviving that community.
Right.
That community you guys built that you didn't realize because you were just kids, just knuckling around, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh man, like we've got this world that's getting ready to be told. Right. And that's just really, really cool to hear. Man.
It's so funny. So in one of the episodes, I talk about a friend of ours, her name is Summer, right? And Summer was like, this girl was a brawler. She was probably the sickest fighter out of all of us. Like, she was down. And she was cool, and she's a pretty girl. And her and my friend Kevin that was the serious relationship between them two, right? And I was wondering how to get a hold of Kevin. I hadn't heard from him really since I graduated high school. But I told the story about Summer and Kevin, but in it I said that Summer had dated a few of my friends, plural. And then my friend Harley calls me because he listens to the stories like the minute I put them out, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. He's like, bro, Summer only dated Kevin. She didn't date your friends.
Oh yeah. And
so I was like, oh, thanks for the quality control.
Yeah.
So the next story, I said, hey guys, correction to the last story. Summer only dated Kevon. And but the funny thing is, I recorded that story like 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
I get this message on Facebook Messenger, Summer, right? And I click on it, says, fuck you, Chacho, making me look like a hoe. And so I say, call me. Because I'm like, dang, she's pissed. And I put my number, and I say, hey, what's up, playa? Right? Calling her a player. And she's laughing. She's like, you're so lucky my husband wasn't in the car when I listened to that, making me look like a hoe. And I was like, I corrected it though, Summer, right? Yeah. And she's like, yeah, but the damage was done, Chacho. The damage was done. So, but it was awesome because she was super lighthearted about it. And I did correct it, but I don't know if she would have cared if I didn't or not.
Yeah.
It was fun. And I probably would have not ever talked to Summer ever again. Mm-hmm. But that story made it so that she felt like she should reach out and talk some shit. And then I just turned it into a phone call because I was worried. Like, and now the book's going to come out and I have this, she's pissed at me. So it's cool because then I got to ask her and be like, hey, are you good with this? She's like, absolutely. I love that. And I dated her best friend, and that was a rough one because we had a cool relationship. Absolutely beautiful little model girl. Like, we had so much fun together. And then I started noticing that she would really sway in her moods. Like she would go from very happy to just pissed, and it started to get really heavy on me. And I was young, so we're dealing with this. And it got to a point where it was really negative and dangerous for her. And we almost lost her. And I told the story, and then I thought, gosh, should I have told that story? Like, yeah. So I got a hold of her, and her name's Miranda, and I said, hey, I need to talk to you because I've told these stories, and now there's a book, and I need to get your permission, and you more than anyone, because you probably have the most personal story of someone who's actually still alive. Sure. In this book, but I think people need to hear it. And she said, no, tell the story. Yeah. And then she sent me pictures and she was great. And we reconnected and talked about stuff. And that was really cool. Right. And I can't believe how brave she was, because that was a tough one. I really thought she was going to say, maybe we just sleep it out. But the end of that story, I talk about, like, you need to check on the people you love because you never know what someone's actually going through. Yeah. And what we see on the outside is not always what's happening on the inside. And in the world today, like, for whatever reason, there was a stoicness about humans before that those emotions weren't as overwhelming. And even if they were, the options weren't as permanent. Where today, people they'll go all the way into that and go so deep and we lose them.
Mhm.
And so we got to check on each other. That's all there is to it, right? And so I'm not one to say, well, everyone should toughen up. Like, things are what they are. Check on your people.
Yeah.
And that's what that whole story's about, right? It's like, check in. It's called The Ups and the Downs. It's in the book. And she allowed me to keep it, but that was also someone that I probably wouldn't have talked to if it wasn't because of this,
Is it, you ever find it weird, man? Like, and this is what I love about this show is like, it's like your degrees of separation from people, right? You're like, you may know somebody that knows somebody, and it's like, man, this show really always makes it come like full circle for me. It's like, I didn't really know Ben, we had Ben on as a guest to talk about some things. Ben knows you know, like Tate Fletcher. I've heard so many podcasts and, many, many people talk about Tate, and it's just, it's a wild world. But like when you start to, like, I don't know if you, in this book, like if you kind of has like, and obviously with your platform, like building it and growing it, like that degree of separation from people that you actually kind of have a connection to in some weird way, it's like getting tighter. It's like almost like it's 1 to 2 degrees away. And it really always just astounds me. It's like, oh, I know this person or I know that. And it's like, okay, cool. How did we meet? And it's like, man, it really is like, as you start to grow a brand, and I don't know if you've seen this, but like you start to like really like see it like almost like just drastically pump up.
I
It's
hope
like it
so.
starts out like tiny,
Right.
but like, no, it does. I mean, because the thing of it is like, yeah, like obviously my group of friends is going to listen to this. They're going to go check out the book. And then like, I'm sure some of them will reach out to you, like, especially some of the ones I was talking about that I didn't name that suffer from dyslexia. Right. Or that, and it's like, okay, well, some of my other buddies that have been on the show that are ex-MMA, like I've heard of your dream before through them. Right. And it's just kind of crazy that like, yeah, it's going to spiral. And like every time like a conversation happens about it, it's like, well, some of these friends become some of these friends and they're all kind of this like bigger, greater community.
Right.
And so I think that's what your book's going to do, man. I think it's going to like, it will. I honestly, like it may be kind of this slow burn, but it's like, it's just so different. Like I haven't, it reminds me of this book in a weird way. And I have one buddy that for sure, if he listens to this episode, I think it was called The House of Leaves.
Okay.
And he knows the book. He's the one who gave it to me. I read it, and it's like crazy. Like it's just such a wild book, and the print was on purposely bad and weird. And there's just one part of the book where he's trying to really convey that you're going through a tunnel and it's collapsing on you, right? And like the words are written, and so they're funneling in. So you're reading around a square like this.
Oh, that's rough.
And then you're like, oh my God, but you're so ingrained. There's like another level to it. I feel like that's what your book does, man. Somebody's going to pick this up and read it. And I mean, going back to what you first said, like it makes me it makes me feel a little bit like I can understand what you go through.
Awesome.
Or at least at this time of your life.
Right.
So what do we got here, man? I've been wanting to.
Oh yeah.
What
crack
is this?
That. So again, we've talked about my boy Tate.
Yeah.
And that guy's all over. So anytime I roll through Santa Fe, I hit him up and say, hey, are you in town? First of all. And that's where we connected, right? I was boxing with Al Lovato and working at my grandmother's restaurant. And all of the guys from Al Crane's school, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Santa Fe, from Alberto Crane, who had gone and trained with the Gracies in Brazil and then came and started his school in Santa Fe.
Sure.
That's where he's from. They would come get breakfast burritos. And the dudes were studs, every single one of them. And I mean, I was fit. I was boxing. So, but I look at him and be like, God, I want to go train jiu-jitsu. But I was terrified.
Sure.
And I didn't know how to wrestle. I didn't do wrestling, none of that. Everything I did was standing. So I had no idea even where to start. And they would always invite me, come train, bro, come train. Because they're sweethearts, but I'm scared. So a little bit of time goes by. I finally get the guts It's right. It's awesome, right?
No, that's good. What's the brand? Nitro?
This one, well, no, it's Caveman.
Caveman coffee?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then this is the Nitro.
Yeah, that's super good. That's dangerous, bro.
Yeah, and he's
Oh.
I mean, I am one that I like cream, I like a little sweetness, I like this and that. But like it's not always easy to go and stop in a coffee shop and make my
Sure.
So like if I'm on the road, I'm doing my thing, whatever it is. But then if I'm at home, I make these I blend them up. Like
Yeah.
I blend them up with and do like the creamers I like, or with a little bit of oat milk, and it's ridiculous.
Dude, this is crazy. So this is So this is Tate Fletcher's company. Okay,
It is.
so the ingredients: coffee, water. Pff,
Boom.
there's 200 milligrams of caffeine, 3 espressos. Damn, Tate, I'm about to get jacked up. There you go.
So anyways, long
That does
story
taste
short,
really good. Damn.
or long story longer, either one. I end up training at Al's gym,
Yeah.
and I suck. Like I'm getting tapped. No matter what white belt I roll with, I'm getting tapped, right? And the only thing that I didn't do was get tired, but tapped I did get.
Sure.
And so one day I'm rolling with this dude, and I think he's like a purple or blue belt, and he has me tied up in my gi over my head. I can't see anything. And he's just toying with me and really just making me miserable. Like won't even just tap me out. He's just being a prick. And I hear from across the room in a very low voice, "Fucking pussy." And I'm like, God, I mean, I know I suck, but dang, like,
Yeah.
not that bad. And then I hear footsteps, and I'm like, and I hear, "Get up." And then somebody pulls my gi up, and I look, and it's Tate. And he's not talking to me. He's talking to this dude that was bullying me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, "Bro, he just started like 3 days ago. Like, teach him something. Work with him." And so then Tate starts working with us. And I'm like, he's pretty cool, you know? And then one day after class, I'm, putting on starting to get ready, and they're working with Tate. And they're working with him for a cage fight. And so he's going through some guys because he's working in a circle. And Al Crane looks at me and says, "Hey, you want to jump in? Because guys are getting worn out." And I'm like, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And he's like, "Just don't let him take you down." And I'm like, "Okay, but do I hit him? Like, what do I do?" So they put MMA gloves on me, and he's like, "Yeah, whatever you need to do, just do not let him take you down." I'm like, "Okay." And so we start circling the mat a little bit, and Tate gets it within range, and I'm like, "Whack." And he's like, "What was that?" And so then I move around a little more, and he steps at whack, catch him again. Catch me, and I'm just sending this jab like right into his forehead, not hitting him in the nose, just over and over and over and over, and it's becoming extremely frustrating for him because he's never trained stand up really.
Sure.
And so his job is to take whoever he's fighting to the ground, and I'm not letting this monster take me to the ground. So and they had no idea I had boxed. They didn't know, and so. Eventually he gets me to the ground. But after that day, we just became friends. And for that fight, I designed his fight t-shirts. And we were boys. And then a friend of ours, Marcos Aragon, he had a body shop with his dad. And his dad was messing things up financially, making a lot of mistakes. There's some addiction issues. He kicked his dad out, and he had this body shop just empty. And he said, "Dude, I don't know what to do with it." So I had bought a house at that point. I was designing shoes now. I was doing my thing. And I sold my house. I took the money from the house and invested it, and we started Undisputed on Highway 14. That was the first location, 2 stories. Bought a ring, put in mats, bags. We bought our bags from Grant Boxing, collection of gloves. We bought a weight room. And we built this gym, Marcos and I. Tate was now in LA. He was working with Joe Rogan, doing his thing. And we got that going. A few years later, Tate came home, invested. Now we had 2 gyms. We had one downtown. We had the one on Highway 14. And it was really happening. We had 2 clothing lines. They were awesome. Like we were going out to UFC fights, for free. Like it was sick. I was broke, and I lived like a king. Everywhere I went, everything was free, and not just in New Mexico. It was great, right? And I was building something. this Tatiana was born around that time. So the broke thing wasn't great. And 2007 hit, and our gym went from standing room only, like after 5, to like 2 people on the mat.
Oh,
Everybody dropped their memberships because the economy crashed, and it was the first thing people did. And so 2 locations was a terrible idea at that point. Marcos had some other opportunities, so he went ahead and did that out in Taos. He started a company called Bloody Maria. It's a Bloody Mary mix. And started building that. I took a job as a creative director for a company in Albuquerque. And they're actually in Texas, but the offices were in Albuquerque. And Tate kept the gyms going. And so he kept them going out of his pocketbook. I mean, that's what he did.
Yeah.
And the money that he was making, and he kept on building his acting career little by little. He'd make money and throw it back into the gyms. And as he started to get a little bit of recognition and people knowing who he was, he got the idea of doing the coffee company. And so he teamed up with Lacey, and they started K-Man Coffee, and it's still around today. It's a great brand. And he has built an amazing career. I'm absolutely just so proud of him. So when I met Tate, he was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu and ran security for a nightclub that I went to work for.
Nice.
As I was trying to start my design career. That's the level we were. He wanted to be an actor before anyone in New Mexico was trying to act, because those tax breaks didn't exist yet, so Netflix wasn't there.
Sure,
right?
sure.
And so since then, he was trying to figure that out. This is over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Now he's amazing. Like he is just blown up to it. And no connections, though. This is just grind, doing what he wanted to do. So 2 years ago, when I took my son and sat him with Tate and said, "Hey, what do we do? This is what he wants to do." His advice was, just keep showing up. And I left that meeting. I told my son, I'm like, "All right, man, you know what that means?" I'm like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah, what does that mean?
And I'm like, dude, that's the worst advice I've ever heard in my life. What do you mean, just keep showing? What does that mean?
Yeah.
It's so funny because now my son's 3 years into his journey, and he's like, "Dad, I think I figured out what just showing up, just keep showing up means." It's true. Just keep showing up. So I love Tate, and we stay in touch, and he sends me coffee, and I drink it because this is the only thing I'm addicted to.
Yeah.
And so so I thought I'd come share some with you since we had a morning podcast.
I already kind of feel it in the back of my
eyeballs.
Yeah. Just like, woo, thank you, Tate.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
But yeah, that's that story.
Well, Chacho, man, dude, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been a really fun time for me, and I look forward to the growth that this book I feel like is going to have. I think it's written unlike anything I've ever seen, and so it's from an originality standpoint. I appreciate that. Anybody? Do you guys have a release date yet? Ish?
No. Just the on Amazon right now, you can buy the digital version. And so we can add a link to that if somebody's interested in that.
For sure.
You won't get the impact that the printed book will give you.
Yeah.
But if you're interested in the stories, and you want to get it soon, the printed book within a few weeks will be available.
Okay. That's awesome.
On there also.
You guys going to self distribute?
Yeah.
You gonna do it all in house?
Yeah. I figure I'm gonna go with what Cash Money did. And
just a bunch of mixtapes.
Well, I mean, Cash Money got the craziest record deal in history, or at that time, and it was 2 reasons. They had no idea what a record deal should look like. So when they negotiated for what they wanted, not for the industry standard.
Sure.
Very different things.
Yeah.
The other thing was they didn't need it because they had already sold so much music. They were already rich. They were already killing it. So anything else was a waste of their time.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've marketed a lot of things in my life. I might not have a huge budget behind me, but until somebody comes to me with something that is going to really make a difference, There's no reason to have that conversation.
Yeah. If you can do it on your own, man, like through your own website, and cut out the middleman.
Yeah.
At least for its infancy, let it kind of grow on its own. Like there's a lot of people that are doing that, It's like why should you be the creative person behind the scenes? You've gone through all this, the struggles, you've printed the book, so why should you now have to give somebody a piece of that?
Right.
Like, we don't need it anymore.
Like
right?
I'm totally down if somebody can bring something to the table, but that's the thing, right? It's like, I don't want to just be put on a show. And it's an interesting thing, right? Like I also do music and it talks about it when I was a kid and then growing up. Like I've written albums. I just released a little EP. There's a code in there, so if you want to listen to it.
Nice.
And I'm not doing great marketing my music because I don't know why. I don't know. Like I don't think anybody cares about a 46-year-old pop musician, but I enjoy making my music.
Sure.
But I see these kids and they're making music and then they're using YouTube and they're blowing it up. And it's so inspiring to me. Like I know a lot of people, especially our age, hate on the new hip hop sounds and what they do. But I just look at them and I'm like, dude, these kids are ill. Like, yeah, their music is very similar, right? But ours probably sound very similar to people at that point. I just see it as an evolution, and I do enjoy a lot of the music, but really what I'm inspired by is the fact that they're throwing these videos together, they're putting them on YouTube, and they're basically slanging them out of the trunk of their car in a digital way. And some of them are blowing up.
Yeah.
And then it's like, this is impressive.
Yeah. I mean, they're controlling their own destiny in a sense, right?
Right.
Because it's like maybe they, music, podcast, it's all heavily saturated, right?
Right.
So it's like if you have passion behind it and you find that like little niche, or you're creative enough to like do something just slightly different, it's like the sky's the limit with YouTube. Like you really, it's an open platform. It's like, why would you not take advantage of it? So it's like, I love when people, you do start to see their channels grow and like blow up, and it's like, this is all self-produced. This is all, we're grinding here to kind of get this thing done. And it's totally possible.
Right.
Like you don't need a record deal anymore. Like, yeah, would it be great? Sure, to get you like top 100 charts? Absolutely.
Right.
But they're going to take 90% of what you created.
Right.
So it's like, to see these kids, whether you like their music or not, to see them blowing up their YouTube channel, their 1 million, 2 million subscribers, their plays are just getting like nonstop on Spotify or YouTube. It's like the times have changed. So now you've got the record labels, you've got these companies trying to get these other podcasts. Like, how can we get into YouTube so that these places want to, they want to come park their stuff on our channel?
Right.
It's like, no, we don't need you.
Don't need you.
Yeah, why would we?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think Joe Rogan ever would have left YouTube had they not start to, like, during COVID, if they didn't restrict him.
Right. He would have.
He wanted unrestricted content. YouTube, you fucked that up.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, it's like, what was that? 300 million something, at least publicized $300 million deal to go to Spotify. Plus he still gets all the ad content. I'm like, they messed up big, right? He wanted unrestricted content. So it's like, yeah, Spotify did bring Rogan over, right?
Right.
But there's other really good channels out there that are podcast related, music related, or whatever, that they don't have to answer to anybody. They're their own record label. They're their own production engineer. They're, and so I think it is awesome to see that.
It's all possible. Like when my son shows me a new song, it's always on YouTube. Dad, let me show you this new song. And then he'll put it up to his phone and I look over and it's a video on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to it in my car and I'm like, never ever. I don't think he's ever gone to Spotify to show me a new song.
No.
We listen to playlists so that I've
for
but
sure.
that's old stuff. Like that's like where if it's hot and it's new, it's probably only on YouTube.
Well, that's why when we started this podcast, it was like, and you hear everybody talk about it. Like I think Rogan's been a huge advocate for it, but like it doesn't have to be a video first podcast, but you have to have a video element. People want to see you. Like I listened to podcasts religiously. Like when I was in Texas for a few years and like my drive time was hour and a half one way, hour and a half back.
Right.
So it's like, it's constantly just playing. Like I couldn't have told you what Theo Von looked like.
Right.
I couldn't have told you. I mean, obviously I've seen Joe Rogan and stuff, but like some of these other people that come on as guests, it's like, I don't know what they look like. I know their name and know what they sound like. So then when we started this podcast, the production engineer on the back end was like, I only ever watch podcasts. I'm like, why you watch a podcast? So then I start like, all right, well, let me check this out. And then it's like, instead of being a fly on the wall, you're like in the conversation.
Right.
You know, you get to see.
Especially when it's done like this.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, but that's why. So when he started mentioning that before, like when we're getting ideas, I was like, we have to be a video first podcast.
Right.
Like our audio is still quality, we're industry standards, but I want people to feel like they're sitting
In the
like
room.
right here with us, right? They're, if they want to, they can still listen to it. But if you want the option, we're on YouTube, the whole unedited version,
Right.
they can be right here with us, you know? So
Yeah, that's sick.
yeah. And then that's what, but going back to your son, my son does the same thing. It's like, it's on YouTube. Yeah, check out the song.
Yeah.
And he's like watching the band. I'm like, dude, if you only knew, like when we were kids, like you get the cassette tape or you get the CD and you open it up and like you listen, you don't know what that band looks like until they happen to come through Denver or Albuquerque and you go
Right.
like, what? That's the guitarist? Oh my God, I've never seen a picture.
I was in middle school and I was with my friend Keith. His older brother somehow was getting music. And so NWA had just come out with 100 Miles and Running. And he gives it to Keith and I. And so we put it's a cassette. It's not even a CD. And it's not a cassette with the band art because it's been recorded from another cassette.
Oh.
So it's just a generic cassette. We throw it in and it's like, Fuck the Police, 100 Miles and Running. All these things were like, these songs were like, oh, and like listening to them, but not too loud because we don't want to get in trouble. And so I'm like, dude, can I make a copy? He's like, yeah. So I have my blank. So now we both put them in there. Now I'm making a copy of the copy, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Worst production value you can get, but I'm going to have my copy.
Yeah.
So I recorded the whole thing. So my grandfather picks me up and for some reason I have the cassette in my hand. He's like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, it's some new music. And he's like, put it in. And I'm like, well,
Yeah. You won't like it, Grandpa.
I don't know if I should put that in. And he's like, why not? And I'm like, well, it has a lot of bad words. And he's like, so I shouldn't listen to it?
Yeah.
Put it in. And the whole way home, we listened to the entire cassette. He didn't say a word. We get home. He's like, pretty good. That's it. Yeah, he didn't take it away from me. Nothing. He's like,
Sure.
cool. That's all right. Pretty good.
Oh, that's awesome.
But with him with his activist mind, now I think about it, I'm like, he might have actually seen some things, you
Yeah.
know, like my grandfather was amazing. He was lieutenant governor for 2 terms in New Mexico
Oh, so-
under Tony Anaya and under Bruce King. And he was lieutenant governor at a time when lieutenant governors made $15,000 a year. And this was like 1976 and then again in the 80s.
Mhm.
So not that long ago. And I think that he passed a bill that got it at the end of his term, they got it so that they would make $25,000 a year, almost as much as a teacher.
Mhm.
And so I don't know about Tony Anaya, but when he was lieutenant governor under Bruce King was gone so much that if you were to add up the days that my grandfather was acting governor of the state, because Bruce King was off increasing his wealth, most likely, my grandfather was actually governor for more time than Bruce King was as acting governor because
wow.
he was gone so much. And so during those times, one of the time was when the prison riots happened in Albuquerque, which were atrocious. And my grandfather actually went into the prison and negotiated with the prisoners because he just had a way with the people. Like he really did care and did listen and did make a difference. And then there were also riots in Albuquerque. And there was can't remember which park it was, but there was riots, cars flipped over. I mean, it was serious, right in Albuquerque. And my grandfather, they bring him in and he jumps on stage. And I don't know if he had a megaphone or a mic or what it is, but his statement was, I know there is police brutality, but this isn't the way to fix it.
Mhm.
And he wanted people to calm down and then let's address these issues. Well, the Albuquerque Journal, first thing they put is Roberto Mondragon supports riot, has his hand up in the air saying, I know there's police brutality.
Dude.
Right? So the media. So that's why it's so important, like for Joe Rogan to say, hey,
Yeah.
let me do my thing, because media these days, and now it's worse, right? We don't know what to believe. Like
Mhm.
I'm at a point where like I can't get into a political argument with anyone.
I don't even go there. I don't,
Well,
you know.
But even if I could stand on one side or the other, I don't even know if what I'm standing on is correct anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
It is so confusing and so convoluted and so terrible. Then you hear an actual conversation. And I think that's what Joe Rogan's trying to bring to the world.
Oh, I think he already has. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I
I think I don't feel like he's done doing his job. Like, I feel
no.
like,
Yeah.
I feel like it just, we need, and I think it shouldn't be just him. Like,
Sure.
we need real conversations. Like, if a candidate is running for, let's get him on a podcast.
Mhm.
He can't lie for 2 hours straight.
No, yeah, for sure.
And let's hear about, my grandfather would always say, don't vote the party. Don't vote the party. Vote the issues. Take the time, research the candidate, research what they stand for, and then make sure that they believe in that.
Yeah.
You can tell what they believe in.
Mhm.
And if that's what they believe in and it aligns with what you believe in, that's what you vote for.
Sure. Yeah.
You don't vote the party.
Yep.
And I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, man, nobody realizes. I think people think that, say you register as a Democrat or Republican when you're 18 years old. I don't think a lot of people realize that you can change that at any point.
Sure.
You can change every single year if you want. You can change every single election.
Yeah. Here's the other deal too, though. You don't even have to change that to vote a different way.
No, you don't.
You get the ballot. It has everybody on there.
But
right?
if you wanted to support someone in the primaries to make sure, you can literally change for that primary.
Yeah.
So that being said, these candidates better realize that if we realize this, they need to work for our votes.
Mhm.
That's it. Now make your decision, whatever it is. But also, as humans in this country, realize these people need to work for your vote.
Yeah. I would think they would want to come on and do long form. And that's, we were very, we didn't know which way we were going to go with this podcast at first. I was obviously pro long form. Everything you read, like, when you start out a podcast, don't go more than 30 minutes. You're not Joe Rogan. You're not going to do this. And me just being me, I was like, fuck that. Same thing with like, you're like, well, listen to the memoirs in order. I'm not doing that. Not happening. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and then let's have a conversation. But, I would think they would want to come on and have long form because it just, like you said, you can't lie. You can't lie for 2 hours. You can be a fake version of yourself for 2 hours, right? But at some point you're going to slip up. And I mean, Joe Rogan does it better than anybody else out there. You slip up, he's going to call you on your bullshit.
Yep. Because he'll ask you, look, how do you figure out a lie? Ask 3 questions.
Yeah.
Or, so then let's just pad that.
Yeah.
Ask Joe Rogan, that dude will ask a question and then a question and then a question and then a question. And you better have an answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's not doing it in a threatening way. He's actually curious.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's his curiosity is what makes him so amazing, right? But that's the thing. Like if my girls are in trouble, my daughter, she had a prom date I didn't know about. She said she was going with her sister, that was her prom date. I find out that yes, she went with her sister, but she actually had a prom date also. She wanted to make sure I didn't meet this prom date. So I find out later because I see pictures. It's very easy to figure out that you've been lied to. First of all, I saw it. But the second thing is I just keep on asking questions. And eventually the reason I didn't get to meet this boy is because supposedly I'm intimidating. We could have had that talk first.
Sure. Absolutely.
So anyways, you just keep asking questions, right?
You got to get to the bottom. His Joe Rogan show when he bought Bernie on, because I think Bernie was at that time it was like just meme city. It was a 2-second clip, so it was building and propagating this like story, this narrative, and so I appreciated the fact that Rogan brought Bernie on and just like, we're going to talk. I think it was a shorter episode for Rogan. It was like 2 hours, but we're going to talk about some actual topics, and I want you to be able to take the time, tell me in detailed form what you mean by this. I don't want a 30-second clip. I want you to actually articulate what you mean. And I was like, when he did that I think that specific episode was like, bam, that's the money. That's the money. And the thing of it is most politicians, the reason I go back to it for a second is that I think that they would be advocating to get on to tell what they really believe, right? But politicians are scared of that because if it doesn't matter even what level. Like a lot of people, they don't want to come on. Like if it's at the community level, if it's at your town board level,
right? They
don't want to come on because then all of a sudden I might get asked a question that I don't have an answer to, or I answer it improperly because I feel like I'm on the spot, and I'm like, hey, that's being
human.
That's being a politician, right?
Right.
You are supposed to work for the public. You're going to be in the public eye. You're going to be asked questions and grilled. So it's like, now's the time to come on and talk truly long form. And then when somebody has a question about that, or you publicize that on your website and go, here's a 2-hour conversation. We discussed X topics, right?
Right.
But they're not reaching out. because it's like there's a fear of like getting exposed. But I think people would be more willing to listen
Right.
to the long form communication.
Absolutely. I would. I mean, right now, anything that I like, any political statement that we're seeing today has been controlled by the party delivering the statement, and controlled to the point where it's scripted, then delivered, then edited, right? And then so we're not getting anything authentic.
Sure.
And so that tells me that those are not authentic candidates, which also tells me it's a very confusing time.
Oh God.
But I think that it would be amazing. Just, like they're getting rid of some of these, the ability of the time for the candidates to debate.
Yeah.
Right. When my grandfather was running, the debate is what he wanted. He wanted to debate. He couldn't wait to stand on stage across from his opponent and have that conversation.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they want to debate?
Because it's become a laughingstock, though, right? It's like every candidate, it doesn't matter whether it's a presidential candidacy or whatever. It's like you have a certain amount of time, and depending on which way the moderator is leaning, there's clearly okay, I'm gonna mess with this side or that side, right? And I'm gonna move here. And then they try and answer things. They've got 30 seconds to answer a really detailed question. And so now it's just become this like joke. Like, we're going to watch the debates, the president, and then they talk over each other. And then you shouldn't do that. I need more time. Mr. Moderator, can I have more time? No, you can't, sir. We're going to move on to this next question. Blah. So it's like, it's become this like joke, this like societal joke. And it's like, in that form, the recent style of debates. Now, here's the deal. You ask a question and say, okay, sir, you've got 3 minutes to answer. No one will talk. If you do talk or interrupt, you will be disqualified from this debate. Boom, there's the guidelines.
Right.
And then people can actually take the time that they need to articulate the answers that they believe to the questions. I just think that our current debate system, the way that it's modeled, it's all for clickbait. It's all like, how many memes can we get? We just asked you, what would you do for prison reform in the United States? You have 30 seconds, sir. Whoa, hold on. That cannot be answered in 30 seconds. You have to show current problems, and so that's why I think we're getting rid of the debate in the way that it is, which I don't necessarily believe in, but what I'm saying is that we need to reform the way we're debating.
Change it.
Yes. It needs to have a longer form, because you can't answer detailed, complex thoughts and ideologies and things in 30 seconds. That's insane.
I couldn't even explain how this came to be in my life.
Yeah.
In 30 seconds. This simple thing. I had to tell you a story about a friend. And then, right? And I mean, I could have said, he gave it to me.
Yeah. I know this guy named Tate.
He gave it to me.
For sure.
But then nobody knows. That's not interesting. Nobody cares. And there's really no information in that.
Yeah.
So you're right. Like 30 seconds is ridiculous.
Yeah. So it's like, instead of getting rid of it, let's take it back, or let's change it to where they've got a little bit longer time. A minute and a half is still not enough time to really answer a complex question.
No.
I mean, but I get it too. We're between ads and all this stuff. It's like, I think the debate is like for an hour. Well, realistically, between ads every 8 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever they are, they're up there debating live for 30 minutes.
My daughter and I just watched a UFC fight. It was awesome. And she wanted to watch it with me, which I was psyched about. My baby, my youngest one. We started those fights at 6 o'clock. We finished watching them close to 11. But a presidential debate can only last an hour.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Well, it shows you our attention spans, right?
That's crazy to me.
It shows you what people will tune into. And they probably had more people viewing that UFC fight. Was it on pay-per-view?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
guarantee they had more people subscribe to that pay-per-view fight than actually tune in, especially to the presidential election.
Well,
I would be
that's sad too. And so then we got to ask the question, is it because people don't believe anything they're hearing? So why listen to it anyways? Or is it both, right? But yeah, that's what a mess. I don't know. I just really hope that people pay attention, go out and vote based on what you believe, and hopefully the candidate believes in and is actually going to, do those things. But really look at it. Like, finances is huge. Look at finances. Your beliefs, look at that. Like, look at family values. All these things are important. Like, look at your values and who you are. Like, if you're not really paying attention to these things and making decisions based on that and on futures, You're just voting one side of the road or the other because that's how you're going to fit into your friend group.
Yeah.
Like you're not helping anyone. And
I
I
mean-
think the country needs that.
Well, and not even too. Everybody's so tuned into the presidential thing, right? But it really. You build the foundation at the local level, like literally at the town level, the governor level, the state level. And like they make so many decisions. I think we all experienced it during COVID. Like they had the freaking power.
Yep.
Not the president. They can say whatever they want. States are independent, right? So it's like, but the governors are the one who shut us down.
Yep.
They said, no, we're doing this. They're the one who put us in hardships. You know, the local things that get passed. Like if you look at some of the stuff that's coming through California right now, like, and this doesn't affect you only if you live in California. This affects the way that your media, your digital media is represented or can be viewed in the state of California based on that IP network. Like they're pushing things gigantically through that are going to heavily restrict certain types of content. And it's basically like open to their discretion.
Right.
You know, it's like they're putting huge restrictions on that. If that passes, like that has a massive impact on somebody who has a huge following from Rhode Island in California.
Right.
If all of a sudden they can't view your content because it doesn't meet state statute, then you've just lost out monetarily. So it's not about just your state. It's not about just your local town board. It's about the things locally that affect you globally.
Absolutely.
In a weird way, right? But you have to be present. You have to think about, you know, the state of Colorado. What are they doing?
Right.
You know, there's reform to housing right now where they're trying to take the control away from the local towns, where it's basically on like a state, like a broad stroke of like, we want housing, we need affordable housing. So then what that does is that takes any of like the planning away from the local and rural communities to where they say, okay, this was designed as a medium high density. It's rated for townhomes. Basically, they want to say, nope, we want vertical construction. We need housing. So in the middle of a residential community where you've got, you know, a house here, there could be a vacant lot. Somebody could come in and put up a fourplex.
Right.
And there'd be nothing you could say.
Right.
Which does hurt, not saying that we don't need the housing, because we absolutely do.
Right.
But that hurts the surrounding homes, right? In a negative way sometimes. But
especially if the fourplex wall backs up to your
but the
yard.
bigger thing though is like you're allowing an overreach from a state level government. The same thing is like you hear a lot of people bitching about federal overreach, right? Into the states. If the state all of a sudden is creating such a huge, massive, broad stroke, then it takes your power away, right? We experienced that in COVID.
Yes.
And so that is something, I'm not saying that it's right or it's wrong. Like that is not what we're talking about. What I'm saying is that pay attention.
Yeah. I mean, so during COVID, while I'm going broke, all the small businesses are closed. They're going broke. I know gym owners, CrossFit gym owners, fight gym owners that are opening in secret so that they can feed their families.
Mm-hmm.
All this is happening. And then my brother says, dude, come out to, it's my birthday, come out to Dallas, hang out. And he has nightclubs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my brother shut down all his nightclubs and then took care of his employees himself to make sure that they could feed their families, because he just happens to have a fat enough bank account that he was able to take care of them. But he vowed, I'm not firing one employee. I'm not laying one off. We're getting through this together, which I thought was amazing.
Sure. That's huge.
Yeah, it's huge, right? So most of his clubs are in Texas. So Texas pops back open. We go out there, and in New Mexico, we're locked in our houses. And in New Mexico, if I go to the grocery store, I'm waiting in line around Smith's that's wrapping around the back of the store for hours with my kids in the freezing cold. And we're all used to it at this point. It's turning into a block party. Like, and I'm thinking, I'm like, does COVID not, like, cause I'm like right here, how, I'm confused. Like, why is this okay, but that store can't be open and that store can't be open? And like, I'm starting to question things. Then I go to Texas and I visit my brother. He flies me out because I'm barely figuring things out at this point. And we go to his nightclub. He has the entire nightclub set up like a restaurant. It's not like a nightclub. There's dividers. Every table has people at it. They're having a great time. They're dancing. They're having fun. The fire department shows up with the fire chief. They do a walkthrough. My brother walks through with them. They check everything. They go to the kitchen. They try to go into the kitchen. He doesn't allow them in. Absolutely not. The fire chief asked why not. He said, there are 12 of you. You're not going to contaminate my kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
This is a clean, safe space. Everybody has masks. You're not doing that. They say, oh, that makes sense. And then they leave. I talked to my brother later. He said, it's a pain. But in Texas, they were working together to keep the businesses open.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
They were making it safe so that they could continue to operate. That was the attitude. Let's make sure this is all safe. Make sure you have your dividers. Make sure that your capacity's correct. Make sure that the kitchen is good. Make sure that everything is we're doing our best here so that you can stay open. In New Mexico, the attitude was, we're going to make sure you don't open. We're not going to help you with that. And if you do, we're going to fine you.
Sure.
Or you're going to go to jail.
Yep.
And so tell me that, to your point, that local government doesn't play a huge part. I don't believe that New Mexico is recovered. I know they're not. And the other thing is, that is a huge reason why I had to leave that state, leave my daughters, go to Texas, restart, do all these different things. Like, looking at all that, do I wish I may have voted a different direction? Absolutely.
Sometimes, we were living in Texas, in New Braunfels, which is between San Antonio and Austin during COVID.
Okay.
And they were quick. Texas was faster to shut down than most other states. And then they really rapidly worked on a way to open back up.
Yep.
It was crazy. I've talked about it a few times on here. It's like I was working for oil and gas. And so the governor came out and was like, here's the deal. This is 85% of our earned revenue. You guys are essential personnel. So we had to run with stickers in our trucks, and, we were working. And so once it started to open back up, it was like, okay, wow, we can, but like even targets, right? All right. We were no longer like standing out in lines outside to get in. It was like, okay, you're gonna come in here. We're only gonna limit it to so many people. And it's like, you would schedule appointments to go into Target like ahead of time.
Oh, wow.
Like, do things like that. And then like going to restaurants, curbside pickup, or they were figuring out ways to allow you to dine. The biggest thing that really hit home with us is because like we lived close to the rivers down there in the Braunfels. So you have the Comel and the Guadalupe coming together, and it was always people floating and tubing. But in Texas, it's weird. Like in New Mexico, you have public land that borders some of the rivers that you can access, right?
Right.
Colorado, you have public land that you can get onto the river and do your thing. In Texas, less than 1% of all land is public, right? And so that is the same case for most of the bordering land to any river. So they had slivers of excuse me, Chacho.
Yep.
They had slivers of like access points that you could go into to get on the river that were like city owned or state owned. Well, what they did is, and this was like right in the beginning, and they did reopen it, but they shut it down. They were like, people were going there and like having like a block party, man.
Right.
And like we were out there, with our kids and tubing, and I mean, you're away from people, you're not sitting there.
Right.
But they were like, shut that down. And when that shut down, that took away anything we could do. And it was like, what are we going to do? But it recovered quickly. They found out ways, like, because they were going off of what the federal government was saying, and like, we're going to shut down, we're going to do this. But like, they started to build back, like you said, together to how do we reopen? Because we are going to starve our people out if we can't figure out a way to allow them to operate. And it was just different. We moved back in October of 2020, and COVID was still rocking and rolling, back to Colorado. And it was like, what did we just do? We moved, holy shit, and they were trying, we were getting outside dining open in the restaurants, and, business hours were changed and things like that. They were moving in the right directions locally, but it changes the way you think. And I think people should think about that as like, we're not past that. I mean, like we're past COVID, sure, but we're not past local governments being able to enact laws like that.
Right.
And it's a real thing. And if we do anything, we need to carry that with us and not forget, because it's way too easy, and we do that as a society, forget our history real fast. Right. It's like you need to be thinking about this not only at the immediately following election, but everyone following that, because we saw huge overreach by multiple states, by the federal government, and it affected us as individuals, because those are the people that we voted into governments. Right. So we need to be cognizant at a local level way more at times than we need to be on the federal level, right?
I agree.
So,
Yeah, no, it was blatant to me. But just that attitude of they're working to keep things open, and New Mexico was working to keep things closed.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Meanwhile, I have 3 kids at home. My son didn't get to walk. He didn't. Getting him through high school is no joke. And we get his diploma in the mail.
Yeah.
And it was rough. He had a really hard time through that time. It cost us. It was not okay. I think one of the things that saved us was in Albuquerque, they pulled down the basketball rims. So because they didn't want people playing basketball at the parks. And it just so happened that there were 4 baskets. There was a court with 4 baskets behind our house that they missed. And I'd go with the kids and we would play basketball.
Yeah.
And that was one of our things. Like we would just go out there and just have some time and play ball, get tired.
Yeah.
Get tired. And then I saw some beautiful things happen. All of a sudden I saw people outside. People just walking down the trails and being out there and doing it. I was like, wow, this is also something interesting to pay attention to that we forget about, right? Because now, it's the hustle and bustle, but it was like those moments when you would see a couple just walking down the trail or doing this and that. And now those same trails are empty. And New Mexico is different than Colorado. Colorado has a huge outdoor community, and the culture is drive, push, outdoor. Outdoor is cool. Outdoor is fun. New Mexico, it's small, and it's kind of a hidden treasure because you want to go mountain biking, you'll always find a parking spot and you hit some sick trails, right? But then at the same time, like it's because people aren't partaking as much as they should. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And it's already slowed down since. But during COVID, and once people realize like I can be on a trail, and all of that culture really started to grow. So it would be nice if people remember that too, and be healthy and be out and have fun in that way. So I think there was a lot for us to learn. I think there were some great environmental things that happened that we saw, like that the earth really can use a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you try to take all this information and like, I look at I look at everything. And I really try to be open-minded. And my daughter's telling me about global warming, and she's explaining to me how, all these things are going to happen. And then I remember all these promises that I've had in life that the ozone was going to deteriorate. And it never happened, right? And so I'm like, oh, this is interesting, and it's probably just another thing. But then in that, I'm like, well, just in case, what am I doing to make a difference? Like, I don't really believe in buying an electric car because this whole battery situation seems like a big problem too. So I drive a gas vehicle, but at the same time, driving that gas vehicle probably isn't doing anyone any good.
Yeah.
So what do you do? So I'm like, well, I love riding my bike. Why am I not? So now I have a rule. If I'm not getting on a freeway, I'm riding a bike.
Yeah.
That's my rule. That's how I'm contributing. So I'm not going to raise a picket sign. I'm not going to have a platform. I'm not going to say I know either direction. If this is real, not real, I don't know. But I do know I can ride a bike.
Sure. You can contribute. And that's, I think that's the best thing to take away is just that you can contribute in your way without having to know the answers, right?
Yeah, just in case.
Just, hey,
and it's healthier for me and it's a lot more fun.
Oh, yeah. Well, damn, Chacho, I think we went for like 2 hours, brother. But
cool, man. I'm going to show them the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you, this book will be out in a few weeks. It is My Dyslexic Life, Hit Hard. This is the My Dyslexic Life series. And Chacho Taylor.
Yeah, I'm really proud about this, guys. And please check it out.
We'll put the links to the to what's out now in the show notes for sure. So
and let me know if someone's listening. I mean, I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, man, you guys reach out, check it out.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's out here in a few weeks, and I know I'm excited for it for sure. So.
And then also, since I'm building my personal brand very aggressively, if anyone wants to follow me, Chacho Taylor on Instagram, I'd really appreciate it. And let's have a dialogue.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Cool.
Well, thank you, brother. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.